This is the fatherhood experience. Turn it up, cause tonight you'll learn how to leave behind the average dad life. This the fatherhood experience. It's time to lead my family and become the father figure I deserve to be. The fatherhood experience.
What's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of the Fatherhood Experience, where we help men leave the average dad life behind and become powerful fathers. I am your host today, Jason Priest. I've got a fantastic interview for you guys. But before I dive in, just want to give a big shout out to all of you who have been following us along our journey and really trying to create an army of powerful fathers and really just spread the word into helping men become better men in their lives and become better dads. Ultimately, that's what we're here to do. We're not here to waste your time. So thank you guys so much for sticking with us. We've got an awesome interview, like I said, today. But if you get any value out of today, all I ask you to do is just take 2 seconds, share the show with somebody in your life that you think it would help. There's a lot of guys out there currently, especially in this current landscape that we've got going on in our country and really even the world, that are struggling both with mental health and physical health. And so if you get any little nugget that makes you think, it makes you laugh, gives you a little bit of knowledge today, please share the show. We greatly appreciate that. We just want you guys to help us spread the word and get the show into the ears of more men who could potentially change their lives. With me today, I have Mr. Patrick Cummings, and he is an entrepreneur, a business coach, and a wealth management advisor committed to helping others balance their lives for happier outcomes. He worked in the corporate world for 12 years before deciding, when his children were toddlers, to start his own business and gain control of his time. An active member of his community, Patrick lives in Washington State with his wife, Brooke. Patrick, I'm excited to talk to you today, man. I know we chatted it up a little bit before the show, and we've got a lot of awesome stuff to cover. So welcome to the show, man. Thanks for taking some time out of your day to add some value to our listeners today.
Yeah, absolutely. And I really appreciate you having me and appreciate what you're doing, because fatherhood is a big deal.
No, 100%. We used to have a scripted question that we would ask everybody, but I just want to get your take. You know, you kind of heard my intro. I want to get your take on kind of where we're at as a country, just from a physical health and a mental health standpoint, because obviously with what we do in the fatherhood is we really lead with health. We're trying to help men become the best men they possibly can be, the most elite version of themselves, with health and fitness as the foundation. Our belief is that you can't live your best life without being your healthiest and fittest and making yourself a priority, which so many men do not do. So many men put everybody else in their life first, and they don't make themselves a priority. So for us, it's about making you the number one priority so that everybody else in your life gets the best version of you. And so what are your thoughts on where we're at as a country and really where we're headed, both physically and mentally, is with all the challenges that we've got right now?
Yeah, well, physically, you don't have to go very far to see that physically, as a country, we're not in good shape.
Sure.
A lot of that stems from, I think, where we are mentally, right? I think mentally there's a lot of fear, uncertainty, anxiety, a lot of outside pressures. And I think people need to take a step back and realize what is happening, right? Our news media feeds on that fear and anxiety, and it's actually an addiction. And
yes,
if
it is.
people don't realize it, that I was challenged with something last week. I was at a conference and somebody said, why don't you, you're talking about taking a break from traditional news, just take a holiday from traditional news, see how you feel. But an experiment is to get up in the morning, take your blood pressure before you've had a cup of coffee, before you've done anything, take your blood pressure, and then turn the news on for 30 to 60 minutes like you normally do, and then pick up Facebook and then go take your blood pressure again. And it's elevated, right? And so we're walking out the door with this level of anxiety, this level of fear. No one can have a conversation and get along anymore.
No.
And I think we all need to take a step back. How is that affecting us from our emotional being? And then how does it affect us as a partner, as a husband, as a boss?
Sure.
And I'm concerned to see where we're going. People can't put their phones down.
No.
So
it's sad,
so
man.
it's just we're in a state of that, like I said, fear, anxiety, and uncertainty.
Yeah, and I'm glad you brought it up, because the mental health, my business partner, Zach, he's often talks about how our physical health is just an extension of our mental fortitude. And when your mental health is in the dumps, it's very hard to, or it's very easy to lose sight of making your health a priority. We get so caught up in the fear mongering from the media, right? It's like you said, I mean, positive stories don't get clicks. It's all negativity. Right. And it's called programming for a reason, right? And so when you are constantly consuming this stuff, that's literally meant to program you and to cause you to be fearful and anxious about your day-to-day life, it's clearly led to I think our suicide rate was the highest it's ever been over the last year. I mean, we're in a really, really sad state of affairs here. And we believe that personal development and personal excellence and focusing on yourself is the only way out of this, right? It's like there's a certain level of staying in touch and in tune with what's going on, but letting it consume your life, right? You've got to find that happy balance. And one thing that we teach our guys is, especially with our morning routine structure and really being able to live life with intention and being proactive about your life, is exactly what you just said. So I love that you brought that up, because what we teach our guys is like, man, when you wake up in the morning, like block that first 30 minutes of your day for you, and so we teach, there's some strategies around a gratitude journal, some meditation, some deep breathing, doing something that's going to serve you for the day, and not letting that stuff into your ears, your mind at all, until you've done that piece, because those things are going to be there. You could get onto Facebook and get triggered later in the day, but don't start your day out like that, because what you're doing is you're telling your subconscious mind that this is what controls my day. I'm a victim of this. You're not in control. Right. And I'm just going to continue to be I'm going to be fearful about my life because of this. Right. And so that first 30 minutes is crucial, we believe, to living your life with intention. And so, even checking emails, you could go onto your email and get triggered by something that's going to increase your blood pressure. Right. And so I'm glad that you brought that up, because we live in a very reactionary society, and a society that's really based on immediate gratification. And I think we can attribute a lot of the physical and mental health issues to that. The likes on social media. So many people post something for a like or a heart. And we, like you said, we don't even have like real conversation anymore. It's this dopamine hit of somebody who, gave me 50 likes on my post. And that's what you're going for. And it's like, you're really craving likes. We live in a world that craves likes and hearts now. We've gotten so far away from real emotion. And so definitely agree with you there, man. And love that you brought the blood pressure thing up, because that's just barely scratching the surface of what this stuff, the media negativity can do to our mindset. Right. And we can all agree that mindset is king. And so love that. So let's get into your story, man. I know, when I was reading the information about you, I know it said you started off in the corporate world, and then you started your own business. And so what led you down the path of entrepreneurship, and deciding, hey, man, I can't do the corporate world anymore? And when was that, or walk us through that time in your life?
Yeah.
Because I like to share mine. And so all my listeners have heard like my dark, like leaving the corporate world story. So I'd love to hear yours.
Yeah. Mine's not a dark story necessarily, but
mine was unfulfillment, not dark, not necessarily. I couldn't do it anymore. I wasn't providing the value to the world that I was capable of. So not dark, but just like gut wrenching, if you will. So
and it's I was tired of being a corporate pawn.
Yeah.
And what I mean by that is, multiple things. Like had a big sales territory, and I'd make my sales forecast, and the next year they'd make the sales forecast bigger,
of course,
or they'd make my sales territory bigger so that I couldn't meet my goal. And if you didn't meet your goal, you didn't get a big bonus, right? I mean, so I couldn't control any of that.
No.
And the other part of it is, corporate America, I'm not going to say every corporation out there, but most corporations out there, they want you to focus on them first. Yep. And when I was in corporate America, the part that hit me the most, I mean, I get up on Monday morning, sometimes 2, 3, 4 o'clock in the morning and take off, and I wouldn't get home till Thursday or Friday. And I was doing this, and I had little kids, and my wife was trying to work, and it was terrible. And I missed my son's first Christmas program, and it was devastating to me. Not only was it devastating to me, my wife was just utterly disappointed, right? And I just said, there has to be a better way.
Yep.
And, do whatever it takes to get the sale. Corporations would, throw this stuff out there, do whatever it takes. Here's an expense account, and that was not a lifestyle that was healthy. Number one, if I would have stayed doing that, I don't think I could have stayed married. Wasn't healthy from the standpoint physically, because you're eating out on the road all the time.
Sales guys have it rough when they're traveling all the time. We get them all the time. It's a tough, cutthroat business. Yep.
Yeah. And so, I kind of went back on my early days as a kid. My mom was a school teacher, single mom. My dad worked in the education environment. So I kind of naturally like to teach. And back in the late 1990s, the stock market was, you couldn't make a mistake, right? Throw a dart at a board. So this has got to be easy to just build a business as a stockbroker. And so I called my broker and said, what's it like working in that industry? And they convinced me that, it was easy and this is the thing to do. And so I jumped into that late 1999, early 2000, right before the tech wreck happened and 9/11. But to be able to be home every day, right, was one of the big factors that I wanted to be able to be home every day. And I wanted to be able to say, I'm going to go to my kids' t-ball. I'm going to be a coach, with my kids. I'm going to be more involved. And there's challenges with that when you start a new business, right? As you all know.
Oh, yeah.
But I was just tired of the corporate pressures. And I got a call one day that I had moved into a new sales territory, and the prior sales rep had loaded up inventories of all these warehouses, and he had misled our company that product was gone. It was sold. And so I was fighting this battle of, here I have all this excess inventory from a year ago that the people want to get credited back, but yet my sales forecast was way over 100% higher. And it was just, they said, well, maybe you're not the right person. Maybe we need to just find somebody else. So if you're not willing to do it, they're going to find somebody else to do it.
Yeah.
And
you're
just
disposable very easily, right? It's like you think you're serving this high role, and like you're literally a dime a dozen to them, and that's how they view it. It's almost like you're just a robot fulfilling one of their roles, right?
Yep. You're a pawn to help them, get their bonus.
Bottom line. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Well,
so that's really what did it, was just tired of being somebody else telling me what I had to do all the time.
How old were you when you made that decision?
Oh, so I was 33 years old.
33 years old. Okay.
Yeah. Well, so I had an infant and a 3.5-year-old. Whoa.
Yeah. That's a lot. So, because there's a lot of similarities there. Because I will tell you, when I made my decision, I was doing corporate wellness. I'm a registered nurse, came from the ICU, went into corporate wellness, and basically, I was doing a job. They were paying me very well for it. Mm-hmm. I was able to finally work from home. They sent us all home, and I would go up to my home office every day where I'm at now and just be miserable. I'm like, this is just not what I'm supposed to be doing with my life. And so I resonate with your story, because I vividly remember we didn't have kids yet. My wife and I waited 10 years into marriage before we had kids. We were going to be the cool aunt and uncle kind of deal. And we realized quickly that was not quickly, after 10 years, that was selfish. And then we wanted kids. And now we have 2 amazing boys, and definitely glad we made that decision. But I have vivid memories of sitting at the dinner table with her and just putting my head into my hands and saying, honey, I can't do it anymore. At the time she was pregnant, and I'm like, we had the one, and she's like, what do you mean you can't do it anymore? And I was like, I'm quitting my job.
Wow.
She's like, wait a minute, I'm pregnant, we have a kid, and you're quitting your job. And I was like, that's what I'm going to do. I got to bet on myself, right? I got to go all in on me, or I'm going to turn 55, 60, 65 and look back on my life with nothing but regret. I am not willing to do that. I will go all in and fail doing this 10 times over before I continue to show up to this place with nothing but unfulfillment and misery, knowing that I'm capable of way more than I can ever do with this company, right? And so
Right.
as just a little, so I definitely resonate with your story. And so let's get into, obviously your kids at the time were a big decision for you on this. You missed your son's first Christmas program. That stings a little bit. That's a punch to the gut. So when I know you said you like to teach, and so, and I know we'll get into your book here in a bit, but when you talk about work-life balance, like what does that mean to you? Because obviously that was a big incentive for you to leave that, other than being the corporate pawn, your kids, as a father, if your kids mean as much as mine mean to me, I'm sure they do, that's your number one priority, right? Like that's priority number one. And if their needs are met, then I will be next, right? And so, and a lot of guys get into that frame of mind. And so what is your approach to the work-life balance thing? Because I know I have a unique view on it. And so I'd love to hear your take.
Yeah, my view on it today is much different than it was when I jumped into starting my own business, right?
Sure.
Because you go from corporate America where you get a paycheck and, expense account and a brand new vehicle every 18 months to, holy cow, I'm the one that's, you got to eat, you're going to eat what you kill, basically.
Yeah.
And so when it first started, I did what I shouldn't have done. I got into it and I was working all the time.
Yeah.
And I was probably a harder boss on myself than my previous boss was, because I didn't want to fail. I didn't want to fail and have to look at my kids.
But it's your baby, right? It's a different mentality, right?
It's a different mentality.
You give yourself permission to be harder on yourself because you're going to figure it the hell out, right? That's it.
Yeah. But what I didn't realize early on, and I realized a few years later, was that, I only have so much emotional energy in me. And if I expend every bit of it at the office or the day, I don't have anything left when I get home. And so, that's kind of how I started out. And I finally decided, I'm fishing. I use analogies all the time. So I'm fishing every day, and every cast was a potential client. Every cast was a potential client. And I knew I was going to, get stuck in the rocks. I knew I was going to break the line. I knew I was going to catch fish that I don't want. But eventually I'd catch a steelhead in my brain. And I got to the point where every day my goal was to catch a steelhead, to find one person who I knew in my heart of hearts that would become a client. And when I had that happen, then I was able to begin taking a step back, because then I could kind of project out that if I do this, consistently, religiously, if I continue to do this, I'm going to build a business that's going to be successful. And then I started figuring out that, hey, I can fish in a different pond. I want to catch bigger fish. I need to fish in a different pond, right? And so I'm looking for a specific client.
Right.
And as I started doing that, I was running my own business, but I was under a national brokerage firm. And so they had some requirements on production, whatever. And the regional manager would be calling me at 6 a.m, 6:30 in the morning. How come you're not in the office? How come you're not in the office? And part of my book, I talk about the fact that I said, no, I'm going to make my kids breakfast every single day. I'm going to take them to school. I'm going to drop them off so that their day starts out positive. My day starts out positive. And I'll go in when I'm at work, I'm at work. But then when it's done, I got to have energy left at the end of the day. And so now, before my kids moved out, and they're 23 and 26, doing awesome. They're my best friends. We really started focusing on making sure that I had energy for them and for my wife. And I would put, if it's important for me to put Jason Priest on my calendar, well, I better have a spot on my calendar for my kids and my wife. So, that now that they're gone, my wife and I, we have a date every week. And that's very, very important. And that date is, as you talk about, you got to make yourself important, but you also have to make them important. And what I mean by that is do you go into a client meeting and look at your phone? If your phone vibrates, are you picking it up and looking at it? Of course you're not. If I was doing that to you right now, you'd shut this recording off, right? Well, why do we do that with our family?
Right.
Why are we willing to pick up our phone if we go out to dinner, or if we're at the movies? Why are we doing that? And part of my book says, take a bullet test. Who would you take a bullet for? you'd take a bullet for your kids. I'd take a bullet for my kids and my wife, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, if you're willing to do that, then why aren't you willing to shut it off?
Right.
Like for 30 minutes or leave the office 30 minutes early and give them that time. And so the other part of that is when you first start, you can't afford to hire people to help you. So you're everything.
Yeah.
But early on, I realized that I needed to start hiring people that their uniqueness was an area where I wasn't strong.
Sure.
And then I didn't have to fill all that time, right?
Right.
I could spend some of that time with kids, and then just spending time doing what the kids love.
Love it.
Horse shows, watching horse shows, and it's like watching paint dry. But my daughter'd look up in the stands, and Dad's there,
right?
You know, and buying engines that didn't run and tearing them apart with my son. I'm not a mechanic, but you know, making sure you're doing things to fulfill yourself, but also fulfill your family.
Love that, man. There are a couple things I want to touch on there. Number one, you know, you talk about your dedication to dropping them off, making their breakfast. That screams to me being present in the moment, right? We have so many guys that spending time with their kids are coming home from work, zapped of energy because they're not in the greatest shape, sitting on the couch, nodding off while their family's watching TV. And that's the time with the family, right? Like that's not quality time. That's quantity time, but your kids are not going to remember quantity time. They're going to remember the quality time, right? They're going to remember when dad is present in the moment. And one thing that I tried, like I'm working on it even more is creating boundaries and barriers where, you know, I'm not on my phone in front of my kid. I used to, in the beginning, when I first started my business, and before Zach and I partnered up, I felt the need to always be on there because I have leads, right? There's people in my messages, people reaching out. I mean, you know, I've got all this stuff going on. It's like, how can I break this, right? And so now that we've evolved and grown as a company and I've set those boundaries, I'm not doing that every night. I'm not on my phone messaging. Do I still get on my phone occasionally? Sure. But I make it a conscious effort to do that when my kids, like when I'm not sitting next to my kid, right? Like if my wife's on her phone and my kid's on his iPad and I'm on my phone, that's one thing. And those moments are rare. We don't do that a lot as a family. If we're going to do family movie night, we're doing family movie night, right? Nobody's sitting there playing the iPad, acting like they're attending. And so I think being present in the moment has such a strong meaning, and not enough guys pay attention to that because quantity time is not the same as quality time, right? You gotta have the quality time for it to be meaningful for your kids, or else they're just going to remember, well, I mean, my dad was around, but he was always on the phone. Well, if what's in the phone is more important than him, well, there's a problem, right? There's a very big problem because they don't feel validated as your son anymore. They're just a person that's sitting next to you while you're on your phone, right? And it's sad. And so it's definitely something that I've been working on big time in my own life, but I wanted to touch on the work-life balance because I don't truly believe in a full, like, I don't truly believe you can have total balance between work and life, right? It's just not, because with work, even if you're a corporate worker or you work for a company, most companies you're putting in 40 hours of time, right? That's a 40-hour work week. As a business owner, you can agree, like until you get to a point where you've got full staff and all that, you're probably putting in a little bit more time than that, especially in the beginning, probably 50 or 60 hours a week. For me, it goes back to the quality time and being present in the moment, because there's no way that I can equal the amount of quality time with my kids as I do with work, right? It's not a true balance, right? And I'm sure you can agree with me on that. And so what is your take on that? Because so many guys, like I'm looking for work-life balance. I'm looking for work-life balance. Maybe it's not that you're truly looking for that. Maybe it's you need to spend your time more wisely when you do have available time, so that the fulfillment is there for you and your family. So what is your thought process there?
Well, I go back, and you're absolutely right. You can't, spend 40 hours a week with your kids, or 40 hours a week, not, focused with your spouse. There's going to be some tensions that come up, right?
Yeah, especially with the spouse, right?
Yeah, or they're going to want to go do something else, or something's going to happen. So you're right. It's not an equal balance of time. But going back to when I was taking my kids to school, how many people are taking their kid to school and they're doing this.
Yes.
You know, they got the phone stuck to their head and the kid's watching a video in the back seat and they're not having a conversation. So just that little thing, right? If you're going to take your kids to school, so if somebody's listening to this thing, go, you know what, I'm going to start taking my kids to school. Okay, don't get on the phone and don't let them watch a video because they can't be bored in the back seat. You're talking, you're singing a song, you're doing something, right?
Play a game, play the sight game or whatever these kids play these days, right?
Yeah. Tell me what your favorite car is. Tell me what the favorite color is.
Yeah.
You know, I think it's amazing that we go through life and we just miss that stuff. I've had conversations with my kids on the way to school. It's like, whoa, I got to pull over here. Like, what are you talking about? You know, they heard one of their friends talking about something that was going on. It's like, blah. Or 9/11 occurred with my little boy. What does this mean? That an airplane flew into a building and Dad, you like to fly airplanes. What having conversations about what's going on in their head and giving them some positivity throughout the day or in the morning. You can't do that if you're on the phone.
No.
And so I'll go back to that quality time. You saying that, you know, sitting next to my dad, he used to have the newspaper sitting in front of him, but we're sitting together, but he's sitting reading the newspaper. It's no different than me or somebody else looking at their iPad, right? And he used to say, we don't get to spend much time together, but we spend quality time together. And yes, we did spend some quality time together. But a lot of my time, and I talk about this in the book, a lot of my time spent with my dad was as his work.
Sure.
And that's what defined who he was. So I think if it's work-life balance, we have to engage and not engage only from our perspective, right? You want to be a positive influence, and you want to raise a kid that can make good choices in this life that we've brought him into.
100%. I agree with you. And you know what, we say this a lot in our communities, like kids will do what you do way before they do what you say. And, you know, I think there's a lot of dads out there, a lot of fathers out there. I like to use the description of a dad and a father is like anybody can be a dad, but it takes a real man to be a father. And not everybody has that same definition, but like I can go be a sperm donor and become a dad, right? But I'm not truly a father. Fatherhood means something much deeper than simply being a dad, right? And so for me though, like I think when it comes to being a father and showing my son that the love that is lacking from society right now, we live in a world of hate and they don't get enough love, right? They don't, like my son recently had ear surgery. And he's 7. This is a major ear surgery, like cut the back of the ear off, pull it forward. This is ear surgery, really in-depth ear surgery number 2 for him. And so it was sad. Like the day after surgery, he comes home and he gets up in the morning, he's looking in, he's got this like thing on his head protecting the ear and says, you know, I look horrible. I'm like, why is my 7-year-old saying that he looks horrible? And I'm like, they're already being judged at school at 7 years old. And so for me, like coming again, like I told you before we talk, like I've gotten to the point in my life where I don't give a shit what anybody thinks about me. And so it's very challenging for me as a father to hear him say that, because it hurts me knowing that like that's his first thought. Like you're worried about what you look like after this major ear surgery to like hopefully fix this thing for good. And so we're the lack of love in society, especially from fathers, is a massive problem that we have. I think you can probably relate to this, but like the majority of youth crime these days happens or stems from kids who don't have a dad in the home. They don't grow up with a father in the home. Exactly. And that we're at a breaking point in our country, in society, if we don't see a massive shift from this, going back to, you know, probably, you know, how if we want to call them the good old days, we're going to be a world of hurt. And I'm not sure that, you know, I think there's part of the country that loves it and wants it to continue like this. And it takes fathers talking to other fathers and getting this message out there to make it a more of a glaring need, because there's a lot of dads out there that are going to listen to this and think about it. It's going to hit home a little. It's going to hurt a little bit. Like I'm the dad on the cell phone all the time. They're talking about me, right? And it's like, this is your wake up call to say, hey man, like it's your ultimate responsibility to make sure that your child, like for me, I don't care if you grow up and you become, if you become, a janitor. Let's just go with that. You're a janitor, but you're the best damn janitor. You show up, you do the best damn job you can, and you're a positively contributing member of society who respects others, does not judge by color, respects women, holds the door open for people, takes their damn grocery cart and puts it back. These little foundational principles of life that get lost when a father is not in the picture.
Yeah, absolutely. And you speaking of a janitor, I saw, it wasn't too long ago, I think it was on the news, but there was a custodian featured on our local news. She was from the Ukraine and she was retiring, and she thought no one knew she existed. And the school, all the children put these, made cards for her and told her how special she was. And she didn't realize, and it was sad part is no one had told her, she didn't realize how many of those kids she impacted because of the smile on her face, the way she greeted people. And if you do it with dignity, I don't care what the job is, if you do it with dignity and pride, right, that lifts us up and it lifts other people up. And what I want to say, you said something about dads who are going to hear this and maybe read the book and feel like, I had a guy tell me that, whoa, you wrote this book to me. And I'm like, no, I just wrote it to men because a lot of men have a lot of issues. None of us are perfect. And I want to make sure that we understand that tomorrow is the first day of the rest of our life, right? Tomorrow's the first day and we have to make progress. We're never going to get it perfect. Never. And the reason we can't get it perfect is because we don't know the place that other person is in when we meet with them.
Sure.
Whether it's your child came home from a horrible day, we don't know what experience they had, right? And you can't be perfect because you can't know it all, but we can be better tomorrow, this afternoon, this weekend than we were yesterday.
Right.
And that's a message that I really want to get out, that this is not about being perfect.
Right.
This is about being a little better each day, and we're gonna fall down.
Love
right?
it. Love it.
And being vulnerable, for me to call my buddy down in Oregon and say, man, I blew it.
Mm-hmm.
I blew it. And I just got to tell somebody.
Yep.
And the men's group that I used to be part of before I ended up moving, and being able to call my buddy Craig and saying, Craig, man, I sucked this week. But being vulnerable to do that, because if we set ourselves up, think about how do we set ourselves up for success? How do we set ourselves up for failure? We set ourselves up for failure by going to what you said. You get out of bed in the morning and you grab a cup of coffee and you start watching this horrible news that's
you react to the world. Yeah.
Or let's get up and do something positive to set ourselves up for a positive day. But it's also, what expectation do we have?
Sure.
If we set an expectation for ourselves to be perfect, we're never going to be perfect.
Right.
And you can't get to that level, right? Because if you're a bodybuilder, there's somebody else that's a bigger bodybuilder, right? Mm-hmm. If you're smart, there's somebody smarter, or, whatever it is. And so to your point, love who you are.
Right.
Right. And be the person you want to be. Be the person that you want your child to grow up to be.
Right.
And I think that's missing because we're just going so fast.
Yep. We don't slow down, man. And we live in this rat race society. And, we have a 1% better mentality kind of motto in our community inside the fatherhood. And, we generally speaking, we lead with the health and fitness. We get them healthy. Our guys start to see, look, I'm feeling a hell of a lot better. My relationships are better. We start talking about family core values. We start talking about bringing that in. We have a fatherhood family plan that we involve, and really strengthen and cultivate those relationships and the family bonds so that your children are looking up to you as their superhero. Zach, my partner, always often talks about his biggest fear is his son growing up and viewing one of his friends' dads as the superhero, and it's not him. Like, that's gut wrenching to think about. But I love that. I love it. But yeah, dude, I can't imagine, right? It's the progress over perfection kind of mentality, though. And when you have that approach, I like to say, accept your imperfections while striving for perfection. Don't expect perfection of yourself, but hold yourself to a standard that you're not okay with just being average, right? You're not okay with just coasting through life. We believe that if you're not constantly trying to grow in all areas of your life, you're going to start dying. And I'm not ready to start dying. I want to continue to grow, right? With my fitness and my family and my finances and all of that. Our goal for every guy we work with is to help them become free from fear and doubt around their health and fitness, their family and their relationships, and their finances. And when you make yourself a priority and you start to align these things as a father so that you do have an actual plan to get to where you want to be, it just becomes magical. But you have to have the mindset to do it. And I believe, and you probably agree with me, that there's about probably a large, not even, I would say larger than 50%. There's a large portion of our country, especially with men, that are okay with being average. Like, there's no hunger or desire there for more. They just coast through life. And that is the most miserable thought process for me. I can't imagine not wanting to grow. I just can't resonate with those guys. We talk to a lot of dudes. All right. I'm in the business of taking calls with a lot of dudes.
Yeah.
And you should hear some of these broken mentality, this broken mindset that these guys have. It's like, I'll use an example. I got a guy who was like damn near 400 pounds. And I presented him with the opportunity, a very good opportunity to completely transform his life. And he doesn't see, I'm like, dude, you don't understand. If you are very close to having a heart attack or worse, a stroke, like, your life is terrible right now, giving you the opportunity. And it's like, they can't see past the initial, like, I gotta invest in myself. I gotta make myself a priority. It's like, they don't believe in themselves enough to do so. This guy, like, I've had guys that the financial piece is not the excuse. It's like the commitment. It's like, I don't know if I can commit to being better for myself. And I just I cannot resonate with that message at all. It just does not. It's sad.
If people realize what they were doing, they're coasting towards death.
Yes. That's it.
It's just they're coasting towards death. And we're all going to die. Yes, we're all going to die someday.
We're all actively dying. You don't have to embrace it. Age is not an excuse.
Right. But they're coasting towards death. They're getting up and doing a job just over broke.
Yeah.
To get towards, come on.
Yeah. No. Yeah. Every one of you guys who are listening right now is capable of way more than you think. All right. This conversation with Patrick today is obviously probably enlightening for you, and it might hurt a little bit, might sting a little bit. But you guys are capable of it, man. Like, get out there and make some moves. That's just it. As like, the coasting mentality will never be something I'm okay with, because I used to be that guy. And now I know that my belief in every prospect that I talk to goes far beyond the belief that they have for themselves, generally speaking. And that saddens me, because if you can't believe in yourself to live a better life than you're currently living, you basically have no hope. And that without hope, you just live a life of despair. It just doesn't make sense to me. I cannot resonate with that. One quote stood out to me, and I know we're running short on time, so I wanted to ask you one more question. From your book, the quote, I would love to hear more about why you feel like, or what you mean when you say your family is your most important client. That stood out to me. So.
Well, I think it goes back to what I said earlier. If you're willing to take a bullet for them, right? Well, then why are you not treating them as important as you treat that executive client you have, or the person that's generating the most revenue for your firm, or or the person that you're going to drinks with after work? Why are we not treating them as a VIP?
Right.
And my wife said to me one time, she says, sometimes I feel like your clients are more important.
That stings.
And so why did she say that? She was spot on, right?
Right.
She was saying that because that's what I was modeling.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, you got to make your client your family. And I had somebody tell me, that is so offensive because my family's not a client. And I said, that's not what I mean. What I mean is, why aren't you treating them better, or at least the same, as you're treating your best client?
Yeah.
And so for me, no, my family's not a client, right? But
I get it. I get the mindset. It's a mindset thing.
I'm treating them.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so that's what I mean by that. Right.
No, I love it. I call these psychological hacks, if you will, right? However, you need to get the message to your brain where it means the most to you, right? It's like somebody that's offended by that doesn't see the silver lining here. It's like, okay, right, clearly my family's not a client, but the reality here is if, like you said, if you can't place your family in a higher regard than your top client, well, then you would not take a bullet for your top client. Let's just go ahead and get that out there. Like, nope. I love you guys. All you guys that are listening, Adams and Nicks and Matts and all you guys, I would not take a bullet for you. Okay. But I would absolutely take a bullet for any one of my kids and my wife. Right. And so I love that. I love that description, because anybody that resonates with that message, especially the business owners out there who are listening to this, it will get some value out of that 100%, because it just makes you think, right? It makes you think a little bit deeper about, okay, like, why is my work continuing to be a priority over my family? The money is simply a tool to buy back more time. Well, if you're not already spending quality time with your family, what are you chasing the money for, right? To spend less quality time to grow your bank account, only to not really have a family bond that you deserve from the beginning if you would have made the time for them to start with. It just doesn't, it's a broken mentality. And you're right, man. Like, we live in a day and age where it's so easy to get caught up in the rat race. And now with everything we have going on with the economy and everything else, just makes it even more challenging to see the light at the end of the tunnel and like what the true core values of your life should be. Right.
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Love it,
man. We say we want to get into being an entrepreneur for the time freedom and the financial freedom. And yet that is a farthest thing from what happens for so many.
It really is. We've seen a lot of guys, man. It's like, you want to spend your life building this empire only to hand the keys over to somebody, because you're going to live you're going to experience an early death. You're literally working yourself into the ground with the empire that you're buying. Meanwhile, life is just passing you by. It's a very it's a broken mentality, man. So this has been an awesome conversation, man, and I've appreciated you spending some time and taking time out of your day to add the value that you did today for our audience. I do want to find out where we can learn more about you, your book. I know that you mentioned a website. So where can we find more about Patrick Cummings and your book?
Yeah, so PNP Strategies. PNP stands for Progress, Not Perfection.
Love it.
So PNPstrategies.com. Or you can find the book on Amazon, The Family Business Balancing Act.
Love that, man. Love it. I love the title. It's the Family Business Balancing Act, an entrepreneur's guide to being a family man. For you business owners out there, go check his book out, man. Like, if you got value out of today's call, Patrick and I spoke a little bit before the show on some things that his wife said about the book, and he goes pretty deep and pretty personal, and really gives you a glimpse into what he experienced. And you guys need to go check it out, man, because if you're a guy that's trying to balance all this right now, and you believed what Patrick and I talked about, how there's no true balance, work-life balance, this will give you some insight on becoming a better father, man, and a better family man. So again, man, thank you so much for taking time out of your day and joining us on the Fatherhood Experience today.
Yeah, I enjoyed it. Appreciate it.
Absolutely, man.